Welcome back to the 100, or wow, we're going to redo this again. Actually, I'm just going to go with it because I just don't care. It's my podcast. Welcome back to the Joseph Graham Show. I used to be called the 150K Podcast, Benny, so I almost went into my old spiel. I met you, though, through our good friend Steve Sims, amazing, amazing disruptor. But for people that don't know you that well, you do a lot. And I was looking it over. You own a very successful business, you run a podcast, you help people. But in your own words, tell us what you do and who you help.
Oh, well, that's I try to help everyone, right? I help everyone, whether it's an entrepreneur that just needs some mentorship, some guidance, some coaching. I do some one-on-one work with entrepreneurs. I'm starting a new group option for entrepreneurs because I do believe that community is really what we crave the most, whether we're an entrepreneur or whether we're just a stay-at-home mom. The stay-at-home moms need a group of stay-at-home moms, right, to kind of talk about all the crap, right, that happens throughout the day, and then also to learn some best practices of how to make the day better, right? And so, going to be starting a community group with some entrepreneurs. I'm also the CEO and visionary of a home improvement company in Pittsburgh, PA. So help a lot of homeowners, right? My company helps a lot of homeowners. We help a lot of team members with gainful employment. But then there's just like, the people that may be listening. They might not even be an entrepreneur. They may not want to work at a home improvement company in Pittsburgh. Hopefully they're going to get something out of this message today that's going to help them in their business or their life. I do believe that you can't help anybody else until you can start helping yourself a little bit. And so hopefully today we can inspire a few people to start helping themselves a little bit more and be a little bit more selfish in that regard. A lot of times we think we're taught to help everyone else and be of service to other people, but sometimes that's just a disguise for not really wanting to have to go deep with ourselves
Yeah,
and
yeah,
really unpack the layers and peel back the onion and figure out how we can get better ourselves. So, because we don't necessarily want to sit with having to help ourselves because that feels uncomfortable.
yeah. No, I love that, Benny, because I think so many times, especially entrepreneurs, we get our success and achievement from what we do, not who we are. And dealing with ourselves, we kind of rush toward the next latest, greatest thing because it's easier to go conquer that mountain than to actually sit and deal with ourselves. So I want to dig into that a little bit because I know a little bit of your story, but you've gone through a lot of different things. How did you, or what even got you to the point where you realized that you needed to get help for yourself?
Man, so many different times in my life I've realized it. Do you want to ask the question when I actually started to get help, or do you want to just talk about all the times I realized it? Because that's a those are two different
Um,
questions.
let's go to where you finally hit the wall because as guys, we know a lot of times we need help. We need to do certain things, but we're not ready to do it. Females as well, but I just talk from a guy's standpoint because I'm a dude. Um, we know we need help, but we still have the pride, the ego, the thing. So what was the pivotal point that made you actually say, I'm not going to do this on my own anymore. I actually need to get help.
Yeah, so it was probably, man, I'm not trying to be difficult either because that's a loaded question too, because there was different points in my life when I would
Mhm.
go out and try to get a little bit of help.
Yeah.
But like um
Well, let's dig
where,
into that
where I
because
where
I
I would
like
try
that.
where I would try therapy just a little bit, but then I wouldn't stick
Uh-huh.
with it. Or I hired a business coach for a little bit, or I'd open a book for a little bit. But then there was the time like COVID 2020. I would say May of 2020 is when I submitted the most, I would say, and said like, man, I really need to change my life. I need to really change some of the things that I'm doing. I don't really like who I've become, and I really want to change some things about me, right? For the better. And and that's what I took a little bit more serious than I've ever have. Now, in saying that, there's still a lot more things I still need to do. I can tell you that. But yeah, I mean, I got, a little bit about my backstory. I got I overdosed on fentanyl in 2017. So you would think I would have like went really hard then, but I didn't. I got getting fired is not that big a deal anymore. Let's see, what else could I do? Oh, I got charged with two felony drug trafficking charges in 2009. You would think that would, of maybe got me doing something different, and it did a little bit. I got robbed at gunpoint, left for dead. I got pistol whipped. I was homeless for 3 days. I was bankrupt before in my 20s. So yeah, I mean, those are a lot of different things that happened to me in my life. I call them God pauses, where God basically pauses you for a little while and says, "Hey, knucklehead,
Yeah.
look around. Like, do you want to do something with your life or not? And then you always have the option. If you're still living, what I've learned is that you always have the option to choose the difference between A and B. I mean, life is
Hmm.
a series of choices of A and B, I feel like, and it's trying to get you to go down that right road. And so, but anyway, that was a long answer. Go. Well, what do you want to get into next, Joe?
Well, I mean, I want to dig into that a little bit more because people that know you know that you're a super successful business owner. You do a lot of different things. You don't take a business to over 10 million without knowing some of your stuff. You've had the successes, and then you highlighted kind of the times in your life where you hit what I call like a rock bottom moment. You hit a wall where you paused for a little bit, but it didn't change you completely. But now that I've known you where you're at now, you've started to dig into that more. You said you help entrepreneurs, you've turned your life around more. Was there a underlining thread? Because you mentioned God as well, and faith can play into it. Was there an underlining thread that finally got you to the point where you're moving forward into what you're wanting to do and who you want to help? Because again, you mentioned the negatives, but you've done a lot of really good things too. So I kind of, there's always that balance.
I mean, yeah, I mean, well, you said you want to know why, like I decided that during COVID-19, like what prompted that?
Yeah, what prompted you to make the change? Because before then, you said there was stuff I started to, I got pistol whipped and I kind of changed, but I didn't. I did the
Yeah,
overdose,
well,
I
I
kind of
kind of
changed, but I didn't.
what I'm starting to realize is that we're always kind of changing, and it's all just different variations of that change. And I don't want to mislead any of the audience at all, but like sometimes I feel like there's probably going to be another time in my
Mhm.
life where I'm really going to make another bigger change, right? And so when I look back as you're getting me to reflect on that, I find it very I find it hard to answer. I know you want the clear answer, but I think it's always changing. I think because we're always growing, we're always going to be able to look back if we have enough being able to reflect and look down and say like, oh, there was this time in my life I decided to do this a little bit more. Oh, and I thought I was doing a lot, but man, compared to this time in my life, man, I'm doing so much more. So that makes that time look it kind of pales in comparison. And so I want people to realize that like it's never just like there could be like you could always have a defining moment, if you will, or a bunch of defining moments like I have, but I think most people have a lot of defining moments. Most of us don't sit still long enough to even realize what those defining moments are. We're never still enough to kind of unpack the those little moments.
Mhm.
Maybe you don't have a crazy story like me where like, you overdosed on fentanyl or you got robbed at gunpoint, but there's a bunch of little moments in your life that if you could sit still long enough to like soak that in, whether they're positive, whether you have a positive connotation to it or a negative connotation to it, if you can just plot those on a line, on a timeline, you'll be able to look back and say, all right, well, what happened? And then what changes did I make, whether it was intentional or not intentional? Maybe you weren't even aware that you were making any changes, but you just woke up one day and be like, man, I'm different.
Mhm.
Well, you did something, your little ticker, your little knower, told you to must have told you to do something different. Or maybe you met someone, and for me, I got divorced in 2020. It was a difficult decision. And I actually knew that I needed to make a change. So that was the first change that I made. I said, you know what? I got to get myself into a new environment. As difficult as that was, especially with having a 5-year-old at the time, I was like, man, like I got to get myself into a new environment. This relationship, this marriage wasn't working out the way we both thought it was going to work out. When we were younger and we got married, but um, most of it probably for sure my fault. I always take full responsibility for those things, but I'm like, all right, I got to put myself in a new position. Then later that summer, I'm like, man, all right, what can I do in my personal life? What can I do in my business life? Well, in my business life, I decided to read a book called Rocket Fuel.
Mhm.
It's a book by Gino Wickman, talking about the relationship between a visionary, usually the founder of a company, the person with the big ideas, the person with ADHD, the emotional person, the big relationship person. I am the prototypical flaming visionary. And then they talk about this integrator. Every visionary needs an integrator, someone to manage all of that energy, someone to be able to, um, like be operate with a little bit more logic and somebody that can understand, how to make decisions. Um, it is that was an enlightening book for me because I always thought I had to do it all because I didn't know any other way, right? I was a doer, I was a worker, I was a hustler, right? Like I didn't know any other way. And in business, you got to go from leading yourself and being, going from like, in my world, a salesperson. I went from a salesperson. I was trying to figure out how to become a CEO, and I didn't know how to do that. And
Yeah.
then had to start caring about other people more, and then I had to become more. I had to care more about them than about myself, right? And then I had to kind of figure out how to manage that, and that book really helped me with that. Um, and then I met a new female, which I vowed to myself that I was never going to do that again. But then, wouldn't destiny have it, that I
Yep.
meet this wonderful lady named Brittany, and she was into health and wellness. And I'm a big guy. They don't call me Big Fish for any other reason other than I'm a big guy. And my last name's Fisher, so they call me Big Fish. Well, I was even bigger
Hmm.
in 2020. I was probably close to 400 pounds. And when I met this girl, Brittany, and I told her the whole skeleton talk, gave her that skeleton talk, right? Trying to
Yep.
push her
Yep.
away. And she actually drew closer. And then after we got to know each other a little bit, she was into health and wellness and yoga and meditation and mindfulness and, eating healthy and all this like amazing stuff that I thought was a little weird at the time. But because she wanted to hang out and I found her intriguing, I started just to do the things that she liked to do. And it slowly but surely started changing my life. And then told her a little bit more about the relationship with God that I kind of like really always longed to have and wanted to have, and also about the relationship with my business that I really longed to have and wanted to have. And miraculously, all these things, these three things, my relationship with her, my relationship with work, and my relationship with God all started to really get better. And then my relationship with my son, I was a lot more present because I was getting to see him every other weekend and every Tuesday, and it was very concentrated present time with him, where before I was just in a vacuum of like, when it's like almost like an all you can eat buffet. Like he's
Yeah.
around all the time, but I was spending no intentional time. Shame on me for that, but like now it's like, oh, because there's these rules, now I can only see him like these, they do the custody arrangement. I was like all in every time I had him. It was like, it was just a whole new experience. And so, yeah, that was kind of like the journey that I kind of went on, that I've been on over the last, I guess, coming up on it's 4 years now. So,
Yeah.
and I'm still
Well,
learning things. When you say that, people think I'm super successful, I always got a question back for that. I'm like, well, what is success? Because like,
yep.
like what I've learned is everyone's different, got a different definition of success. And I am actually trying to run from that prototypical, like, oh, he's successful type of thing because, like, the only thing I'm successful in, I believe, is knowing who I am now and trying to be fully, unapologetically me.
Hmm.
And whatever happens after that, like, that to me, that's the thing that I'm the most successful at. But other than that, man, it's been a lot of trauma and a lot of heartache to build some of the things that people see on the external.
Well, I love that though because you dropped a lot of bombs here. So first and foremost, we'll talk about success because I like that. I think success is defined in what you want to wake up to living, the life you want to wake up to living. There's no monetary value to it. There's no set rules to it. You get to decide what you want to do. So many times people say it has to be this way or that way. I've been successful in sales for a lot of years. It doesn't mean that I'm successful in my life. It just means that I check the boxes that people may think it's exciting or whatever. You also said that you people needed a group, but then you said I found my person. It went from group to person from me listening to you, because I'm sure you have a group of people that talk to you, but then you have your inner circle, like the lady that you met that you tried to push away that now like you have the relationship with. And I think over time we have to understand that chasing the big things everyone else says it's success really doesn't satisfy. It's what it seems like because you can check the boxes. You checked a lot of the boxes. I know your network. I know people that you're connected with. We're connected with a lot of the same people, and a lot of them just keep chasing the same thing over and over again. New business, new this, new that. But you said something that I loved. I'm trying to be happy with me or be the best version of me, whatever words you want to put in there. And I think people, especially listening to this, need to listen to that. Because I think most highly driven entrepreneurs and all aren't happy with themselves, and that's why they keep chasing.
I agree.
That just, it's interesting to me because with the podcast, and I know you get to do this too, I get to talk to a lot of really cool, successful people, a lot of really cool people from the outside that's looking in. But when you get inside their world, a lot of people have this hidden wound that they don't want to address. And I think we go through iterations all the time. I could look back through all the times that I went from being a broke country boy kid to being super successful in the corporate sales world to starting my own business or my podcast, but none of those really define me. They're just things that I've done along the way. So, how do you, with the iterations and with everything you've gone through, did you get to the point where you realize you just need to be happy with you? Because I think that's the biggest thing most people aren't.
What if I told you that I'm not sure yet?
I love that.
Like, I don't really know like if I'm completely happy with myself. Yeah, I like to I have a positive outlook on life. I
Mhm.
have a but because I always here's the interesting thing about growth, because once you have enough cycles of leaving the old self and transforming into the new self, let's just say you do that 3 times. Well, not not third time. You're like, shit. Like if I can do that again. Like I can do that again. So like, I got to leave something now. Like I got like that means I got to die. A part of me's got to die, so that
Mhm.
way I can be reborn and recycle and transform. And so that's that's like the wild part. It's like, is it ever going to be enough?
Does it
Do
have to
I
be?
No, it doesn't have to be. But I also think that like, am I all right? I'm trying to figure out this thing of like just being, right? And I'm
Mhm.
because I've always been a doer, right? And always been driven by achievement and like, hey, look at me, I'm doing this, or hey, I want to win this prize, or I want to win this commission, or I want to like, get this accolade or award. And I read a book called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. And I also read a book called Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins. And, putting both of those together, I'm trying to figure out like, could I just go, do I need any of this stuff from the outside world? Can I just go inward and keep going inward? And then when I think about my relationship with God, can I just focus on that more? And if I just took all of my energy and just focused on that, like with fine-tuned precision, what would my life be like? So I wonder about that a lot. And I always wonder, what if I could truly operate? Faith's a big word, but like truly operate in that faithful moment of like just being.
Mhm.
What would I actually, like what is like I don't know, maybe that is happiness. I don't know. Like I wish I had
Well,
more of the answers. I'm sure your
no,
people are
no.
probably, your listeners are probably like, give me a good answer. And I'm like, I don't know, that's the best I got.
No, you're giving a great answer because so many times I think we forget life's a journey. and we learn and we grow from the experiences and the people that we meet and the things that we do each and every day. And because we're doers, we think that we have to give them something for them to love us. And in reality, there's people that love us for who we are anyway. And then the biggest thing I think, and I could be wrong here, but is that we have such a hard time loving ourselves because we see our faults, our weaknesses, our mess ups, that we're trying to show them to love us instead of learning to love ourselves, which is sitting with it and doing things that we don't like to do, which is actually looking at things that maybe we're not as happy about.
Mm, yeah.
At least that's been my journey. And again, I don't think there's rules with this. I think we go through different variations because being successful, you can only win so many awards. I leave them up there because I do sales coaching so people can see, oh, he's accomplished something. But you go on so many trips, you do so many things. That's not fulfillment after a while. Fulfillment for me was I got to go to the pumpkin patch with my daughter yesterday. We just had fun. She's 10. I wasn't really excited about the pumpkin patch and the corn maze, but seeing the joy on her face, it was great to be out in the 90-degree sun 'cause in Arizona, so it's still stupid hot here. Running through a corn maze with her because she's never done it before. I think we think it has to be hard, or and I want to ask you your thoughts on this, but like most super successful people I know think it has to be hard to make it be valuable. And I don't think it has to be hard always. I like hard things, don't take that wrong, but I don't think that just equates value.
That's because we are taught, whether we're aware we're being taught this or if it was on purpose. I don't think there was any evil plot against us, whether by our parents or grandparents, our environment. But there's something innate about a human that we always feel like we have to work towards something, right? They talk about this in the Bible a lot of times. You don't have to work. You don't have to work for a relationship with God. You just have to enter a relationship with God. But because of our sin nature, because like there's always something that we feel ashamed of or we feel like we're not good enough, we do, right? That's what turns the
Hmm.
human being into a human doing. And because we're always doing, well, we make for great creatures or animals to like make a lot of stuff and build a lot of things and create a lot of things from that. And then the powers that be in the world know, I think, exactly how humans operate. And they're like, all right, cool. Like, I'm gonna have you go build me this company. I'm gonna have you go build me this thing. And I'm gonna have you go, and like they don't know anyway. They're just passing it down because that's what they know, and they might not even be aware. But people need to feel that sense of purpose, that sense of achievement, that sense of, and so that's why there's good jobs out there, there's bad jobs out there, but there's jobs because everyone needs to be doing something, right? Everyone needs to have a purpose.
Hmm.
Everyone needs to feel like they're contributing, right? They need to feel significant. They want to feel seen and understood. Um, and they and we all are like that. There's few of us that are actually aware that we're actually like that, and that's how kind of everything works. And then it's our job to be able to, come to that awareness, be okay with that, like know, like, all right, cool. Do I need to make some changes in my life? Like, is my purpose really delivering the mail every single day if you're a mailman? Maybe it is. Highly doubtful unless you had an intentional, peaceful moment one day where you're like, that is my purpose. I love being outside every day. I love doing the same route every day. I love being able to I love not having to like talk to anybody if I don't want to. Like, you know what I mean? Like conscientiously think like, all right, this is my destiny.
Hmm.
Or is it just a job? Because like
Yeah.
my mom was in government and she wanted to, and then it was the job that paid a little bit more and it had good benefits and like why am I actually doing that? Like,
Hmm.
and just sit there. And no matter what, you could substitute post office worker with being an entrepreneur with, any job out there. You name like that you can name or that you're into right now and be like, why am I actually doing? And very few of us, including myself right now, is like, man, what should I? Because here's what should I be doing? Because you don't know. Because guess what? You've only tried a couple things in your life. First
Yep.
of all, first and foremost, most people have only tried a handful of about like 10 or under jobs. Most people have
Hmm.
not had more than 10 different jobs. And most people with 10 jobs, five of them were doing the same stuff, just at a different company.
Yep. Yep.
And so it's a very fascinating thing. I don't know what to do with all that, but
Well, I think it goes down to people get caught up in what society tells them, what their family tells them, what their friends tell them, and based off of their risk tolerance, a lot of them just check the box. Or we could go really deep with this one. Actually, education system makes people into employees most of the time, unless you escape that matrix and start to branch out on your own. But I think so many people are afraid of rocking the boat instead of finding peace in who they are. And you're not going to know who you are until you actually step out, if we're using biblical terms, on the water and walk the walk of faith and actually do the things that maybe scare you a little bit. I think so many times we get caught up in this is what I was told to do instead of what do I really want to do? Like I started a podcast because I started getting successful and I wanted to help dads take their kids to Disney because I got to do them. Like, oh, cool. I just want to get bring people on and talk about that. And then it developed into I want to wake up to a life I love living. So I started bringing more cool different people on. And it's been different iterations with it. I've done multiple sales jobs too, but they don't fulfill me. They're just the means to fund what I want to do outside that gambit. I mean, I know I want to make money so I can do a lot of cool stuff, but a lot of it I think comes down to what are you really content with? And I think most of the time we don't, most people do not even get to the point where we're even able, like we're talking about this right now. We actually can take time out of our day to talk about, well, what do I really want to do in life? And most people are just trying to figure out if they like their job or not. I think that's sad in a way.
yeah, sad or exciting that there's podcasts like yours that are making people more aware, right? And people are starting to wake up. And it's kind of like when you see a baby for the first time. It's kind of like, ooh, there's lots of awe and wonderment and amazement. And that's no different when some of us are just, 40, 50, 60-year-old babies that are just need to wake up, open our
Mhm.
eyes for the first time and figuring out like what are we here on earth for? But it starts with like knowing who you are at the core and knowing about yourself and falling in love with yourself and figuring that out and then figuring out, what your core gifts and strengths are and how they would correlate into something that you're interested in that's purposeful. And then, obviously we need to, eat and like have a house and things like that. And then you got to figure out how to make money with that,
Mhm.
or some type of value exchange, right? And so like that Venn diagram of like the middle of of what you're good at, what you're interested in, and what can make money. Like there's a sweet spot there for anybody, And at the end of the day, I mean, you're hard pressed to find a job on earth right now, at least in America, now that you couldn't do that and make a living
Mhm.
at something that you're super interested in and something that you actually have a gift for.
Yeah.
And so the likelihood of you like that's much easier, I think, to find once you're purposeful about it. Now, listen, are you going to have to make some alterations to your life, especially if you're used to one type of lifestyle? Yeah, but let's just say you make 300 grand a year. I know this used to be called the 150K podcast. I didn't realize you changed the name of it, but that's cool.
Yeah.
I think the purpose of that was because you want people making 150K a year to be able to stop what they're doing and be able to maybe start a business. Was that what it
Well,
was? Was that the premise?
the whole idea behind it was that when I started that podcast, 150K, unless you were in LA or New York, put you in the top 10% of income earners, where you could start looking into what you wanted to do because you're not hand to foot. You shouldn't be hand to foot making 150. You have enough money where you can start actually looking into what your life
Mm.
purpose, what you
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
do
yeah, yeah,
could be.
yeah.
That was kind of the idea, and then it evolved from there.
Cool. All right. So yeah. So let's say you're making 150, even better yet than 300K. Let's say you're making 50K. It doesn't matter. But if you're making
Yep.
more than like, because I think that you can almost make 50 or 60K a year pretty much almost doing anything. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure that if you go to McDonald's and you got like a little bit of drive, that they're going to make you
Yep.
a manager, a general manager, and you're going to make 50 or 60K a year right off the bat. So let's just say that that's the base level in America. But if you're making 300K or 150K, but the job that you really love and the job that you'd be the greatest in the world at, and the job that they give you the most purpose only pays you 60K a year. Well, sure, you're going to have some lifestyle things that you're going to need to exchange, and you're going to be like, "Oh, Ben, I can't do that." But you're also the same person that's not happy, and
Hmm.
you're also constantly being miserable. And so, is that money actually bringing you any happiness or comfort? I don't know. Like, what if, yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. Based on everything I know and based on everything that people say, like, I don't know. I don't think it is. I think that comfort could be lying to you.
Hmm.
Um, because if you're truly doing something that you love and it was truly in your unique gift, I don't think it's going to matter. Because
Yeah.
like every day is going to be a new adventure. You're going to be excited. You're going to wake up. You're not even going to think about that type of thing anymore. And that's hard to imagine though, because we've been chasing that thing that we've actually, most of us are determining that's not actually what makes us happy.
Hmm.
But now because of the internet and shows like this and podcasts, we're actually able to exponentially start to get that word out now. And you're starting to see a shift, I feel like, and consciousness around that. And I find it very interesting to see, like, it'll be interesting to see what the humans do with it in 10 years. It just so happens that it's at the same time, though, that AI is coming out to where a lot of us aren't going to have to do a lot of the same things that we were used to doing. And there will still be plenty of money, I think, around. So it's going to
Hmm.
be all very interesting the next 10 years.
I love what you said there. It's finding what it is that fills your heart with life, finding what it is that you really, your unique gifting, what you like to do, or whatever. Not that it's rainbow and unicorns every day, because it's not. Like, I like sales, I'm really good at it, but there's days it's super stressful, there's days it's not. But it's something I know I'm really gifted at, so I can do. But I've changed generations of that all the time, from B2B to B2C to sales coaching to whatever. And that's even changing. And I think life is always adapting and changing. I think once you stopped adapting and changing is when you're dead in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
I think they said Benjamin Franklin said a lot of men die at age 20 and get buried at age 70 or something. I might not be quoting that exactly, but I think especially people that I know and just people that probably listen to the show, they're searching for what is it they truly want out of life instead of what is it that the society's told me I have to have. And I think questioning that and looking at, I love your analogy of it because if you can make the money you want to make and be happy, great. But if you got to take a step back, but you have happiness and contentment, that's way better than making 300,000, like you said, and not having the happiness and contentment. Because at the end of the day, you got to live with you and learn to love yourself, which goes back to what we were talking about before. We keep seeking external validation, but we really need to go inside and do the inner work through God, relationships, however you want to put that. And I think a lot of times we're so afraid of it, so we're going to go find a new mountain to climb or a new sales job to do or something else instead of actually dealing with ourselves. So how did you get to the point where you dealt with yourself? Because talking to you now, I know you've started doing more of that work, and I know you haven't arrived. No one's ever arrived, but how did what did you do to start helping you realize this thought process?
Well, the first thing, that I did to start to figure out who I was, knowing myself a little bit more, was I took an assessment one time because business related assessment. Someone gave me a disc assessment, and because I was looking for business help because I wanted to grow my business, right? I wanted to go do all these things, right? Well, when we did the assessment, I read the report on myself, and I'm like, how did it know that about me? I said, that is exactly how I feel, and that is exactly how I am. How are they so eloquently able to say that about a person that they've never known, other than just my little inputs? So that got me really fascinated. And then I took another assessment. Then I took another assessment, and I took the Enneagram. I took the Myers-Briggs. I've taken the Colby. I took the Visionary Integrator one on EOS. I said DISC, Strength Finders,
Hmm.
Culture Index. I mean, I took them all. Like I went on like a 2, 3 year run of like if you had an assessment, oh, I was filling it out. There was
Nice.
one, Dr. Doug Brackman, the book Driven. He has a Driven assessment.
Hmm. Done that one.
That's really good. Gino Wickman has in his new book Shine. He has a set an assessment, and these are just like really good. Someone will tell you exactly who you are, then someone else will tell you about where the gaps are in your life, right? And when you combine all that stuff together, if you have the if you have the ability to be able to analyze that information about yourself, right? Like if you can do that on yourself, which is probably difficult for some people, but for me, I was able to do that. I was able to really like say, "Wow, this is cool." And then it'll teach you about some of the blind spots, right? And then combine that with knowing yourself to then slowing down and being still and then wondering. Like I love the word wonder. Like just wonder what that 7-year-old version of yourself, if you knew that then, and then, skip ahead, I'm 43 now. So like,
Hmm.
35, 36 years ago, imagine if I had all that insight, how different my life would look. But don't get bitter at it. Just decide like, hey, well, I know today, and just look how miraculous the next 35 years will be. Or listen, if you're 75 years old, listen, and you're like, yeah, Ben, I probably don't have, listen, enjoy the next year, knowing what you know now,
Hmm.
and then being able to act on that with confidence and data, right? Rather than just wandering around like a chicken with your head cut off, just working to try to climb a mountain that you're not even sure that you're going to be happy with when you get there. And then you get up there and you climb the mountain, and you realize, I'm on the freaking wrong mountain.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then you look over and be like, oh, shoot, I'm supposed to be on that mountain over there. Like,
Hmm.
how would you like to know, like, sooner that, like, man, this is who you are. First of all, there, like you said earlier, there is no mountain. It's all life is just a
Hmm.
journey. And if you could know that ahead of time, that life was just a journey instead of a freaking mountain, and you knew yourself, just those two things right there alone, and then you could learn the art of sitting still and listening to yourself,
Hmm.
and then creating space to be creative. Not putting all your self-worth in doing, right? Like if you could do all those things as a young person, whoo, buddy,
Yeah.
or even as an old person. And so I
Hmm.
say, I challenge you, to maybe start to go on a little journey where you get to know yourself a little bit and, take some of those assessments, get still, find yourself a guide along the journey, whether it's a mentor, a coach, a friend, somebody that's a little bit of somebody that's kind of where you want to be, at least
Hmm.
mentally with like some of these things, and borrow some of that wisdom, right? So then that way you can, hopefully that way you can get yourself better. So then that way you can be that wisdom person for someone else. Because I think on earth, God put all these beautiful humans together, and we just need to figure out and unlock all of our strengths and weaknesses together. So that way we can perfectly fit in this perfect puzzle of just bright light.
Hmm.
And we don't achieve that because our egos in the way, our pain is in the way, and so it puts up a lot of blockers, right? And so that's why we have all this chaos and trauma in the world and all this upheaval, and it's a very fascinating thing, Joe. I appreciate these questions. These are good.
Yeah. Well, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and most business podcasts or sales podcasts, they ask the same people the same questions over and over again. And I get bored with the same questions. I want to know the inner workings of someone. I want to understand, why do you think that way? Yeah, I already know you're successful. I know a lot of successful people. Why? And that's why I like this type
Success
of
again. I want to keep
conversations.
telling you successful inside of what though? Like, are you just successful
Hmm.
because you like my cars, you like my business? I mean, like here, I will give you this roofing company tomorrow, and you tell me how successful I am, right? Like, I don't know, a lot of people wouldn't want the pain. There's a lot of things that like that came out of a lot of pain.
Hmm. Yeah. I
I
should
would
use the word fulfillment. I should use the word fulfillment because fulfillment's different in the sense that society looks at certain people as successful and not successful, but really it's subject to the person and what they define as success. Fulfillment probably would be a better word in the sense of, as you get to certain things and do it different ways, you feel fulfilled in your life. Maybe I should reframe it that way more so. I think I just use the success word because that's the industries and worlds I've been in.
Well, I hear you. We got to change that, Joe, because we
Yeah.
don't want people listening to us thinking like, oh, like success only looks a certain way.
No, it doesn't.
Because like
It
I
doesn't at
know
all.
some people that look completely different than me. They're much happier than me.
Hmm.
I envy their happiness and
Oh
how
yeah.
simple they are and how minimal they are and how joyful they are. And sometimes that yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to change this narrative. But yeah.
I think talks like this do it though, because now we're probably making people think, well, wait a minute. They're not just saying this is successful as being a multimillionaire or being a top closer for a Fortune 50 company or this or that. Those are external things that have been achieved. That doesn't mean they're success. And
Mm,
like you, I've gotten to the top of mountains and I've been like, I don't want to be on this mountain. Crap, I'm going to have to go to the other. Um, and I think it's just learning to figure out, okay, what is it now? And not holding it in judgment because 10 years from now, it could be something completely different
mm,
that you find fulfillment and joy in life in. I used to write short stories. I haven't wrote short stories in 5 years. Not that they're bad or good. It's just at that time it was fulfilling to me, but then I got into doing something else. Like I think you said, you have to try different things. What is it that you want? And then the only other thing as a man, we have to hold our responsibilities. Okay, cool. If we're partnered with someone, we need to talk to them about this is what I'm wanting to do. So if you're making 300,000 and your thing's going to take you down to 100, you need to talk to your significant person so that they're on board with it, or you guys need to agree to disagree. I think that's the other thing with the dynamic. If you're in a relationship, if you're single, you can do whatever you want. It's just your own choice.
mm. Yeah, it's awesome. It's good insight, Steve or Joe. I don't know why I called you
No, it's
Steve.
hey,
I
we
literally
met
got a,
Steve.
I got a message on my is your
Yep,
podcast video or is it
it's
audio?
video too. It's
Look
video.
at that. Look
It's
at that.
video
I
too.
saw that and
Yep.
it like literally triggered my mind. I saw this
Yeah, yeah.
notification come up that said I love you in a non-sexual way. And I'm like, oh shit. Like and then all of a sudden I
That's
call you
Stems. Yep.
like, oh, dude. Oh,
Hey, you
I'm
know
like,
what?
I
I
should
know
turn
the
my
Steve
phone
you
like
mean.
this.
We're good.
You know what's interesting though? At the same time that we were on this call, I got an email from Gino Wickman.
Hmm.
Um, he wants to know if I'm interested in attending one of his Shine meetings. He's hosted these like local meetups in Detroit,
Hmm.
and it's kind of like an AA, but it's more about the 10 disciplines in his book. Have you read that book
Nice.
yet?
No, I've not read his
I
book.
didn't mean to change the
It's on my
subject on you.
list.
That was a hard
Oh, you're
change of
good.
subject, but I was
All
thinking
good.
about that. I was like, man, there's a reason that Gino Wickman just emailed me while I was on the Joe Graham show.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering if it's because I need to tell more people about that book, Shine, because it's really made an impact in my life. Um, so yeah, I want to encourage you
Yeah.
to read it if you haven't read it, and maybe your listeners. It's been a really good book. It's going to help you to get a little bit closer to enlightenment. The only thing it leaves out is this relationship with God, which I think is a foundational part. Now,
Hmm.
discipline number 4 is be still. Hopefully, when you're still enough, you can figure out how God speaks to you and enter that relationship. But I believe if you get God plus these disciplines that are in Shine mixed together, poof, man, good stuff.
I love it. I love it. No, I mean things happen for a reason. Like I was watching, you'll laugh. Before this, I was listening to and this is a topic when we did it. I think Donald Trump was on Joe Rogan's show and they're bouncing around like 18 different ways. I was just listening to it, I'm like halfway through.
I couldn't watch the whole 3 hours. I just didn't have the time, but I
No.
watched like a 30-minute highlight that somebody clipped up a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
I feel like I got the gist. Donald usually repeats himself a bunch of times. So
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I just listen to stuff when I'm doing emails, but it natural conversation and podcast is way better than scripted in my and things happen for a reason. So that book
well,
Shine,
listen,
I'll drop in
I
the
got
show notes.
5 minutes. I got 5 minutes left. Okay. Before I
Hmm.
got my next call, I got to go to. Who do you think is going to win the election? I'm going to ask you a question.
Um, Trump.
Do
I
you
feel he
really?
should. I feel he should. Um,
Yeah, but who do you think is actually going to win? Who do you think is actually going
Trump.
to be the president? Okay.
only because of the non-media factors and the people I talk to and people. I have a very wide group of friends on all spectrums. I even did a post recently about kind of what I think of political stuff. And even some of the ones that won't admit it are leaning a little bit more toward him. I think I'll say it this way because again, I'm not a politician and it doesn't matter. Unless it gets fixed somehow, I think Trump will win, but it will be close. Closer than people think, but I think he will win. That's just my predictions. Then again, I'm not a politician. I don't have any insight. That's just me going off my gut. And I'm a center right libertarian. So I'm not 100% Republican. I'm not
Mm.
100% Democrat. I'm kind of, like I said, center right libertarian.
Mm. So it's interesting because I actually just looked up because you know one place that doesn't ever lie usually is sports betting. And
Mhm.
and you're not allowed to do sports betting. You're not allowed, betting in the US. You're not allowed to bet on presidential races because obviously I'm sure that there's a lot of
Law upon that, right?
corruption and stuff like that. But offshore, they can do whatever they want, right? And so Trump right now is minus 200. So that means you have to lay $200 to win $100.
Hmm.
So that's a pretty, especially on a coin flip type of like thing, that's a pretty
Yeah.
big leap. Um, that's impressive. So I just actually looked that up since we were on the thing. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I really don't feel like I've seen as much noise from the other side like I would normally do. Um,
Yeah.
there would just be a lot more firepower. But I will tell you this, and this is a hot take. And by the time I don't know when you publish in this.
2 weeks,
Oh,
right
so it's
after
already,
the election.
it's going to already be over. They'd be in freaking trouble if Barack Obama was running.
Hmm.
I listened to a couple of his speeches over, when he's like, because he's on the circuit right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I'd vote. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to go on the record saying I'd vote for him,
You're
especially
good. You're good. You're good.
now that I know
He
what I
is
know
an
now.
amazing speaker. He's an
Oh,
amazing orator. He's one of the
he's
best. I have no problem saying that.
so good.
Brilliant.
He's
Yeah.
so good. He's so good. He's getting even better now. You know why he's better now? Because he's got nothing to lose. He's letting it all.
Hmm.
I mean, I saw him rap an Eminem song. I saw him
Yep.
like high five and hooting and hollering and tell some jokes. And he was even
Hmm.
making fun of Trump. That dude never made fun of nobody. Like that dude, he was always so square and so straight
Hmm.
and like I can see myself hanging out with like Barack. I would
Yep.
actually rather hang out with Barack Obama than anyone else in politics right now. Like just to hang
Hmm.
out with him, have dinner. Now his politics and his initiatives, not the biggest fan of, right? Like now that I know what they are. But if you weren't that educated, you couldn't help but not love that guy. Like
Oh, he's
that
got
dude,
the charisma.
that dude. That's what both parties are missing.
Hmm.
Both parties are missing a Barack Obama, somebody that is like a regular human that can just man. Whew.
You know what
Anyway,
would be fun? And I know we can't do this. If we could have had Reagan in his prime and Barack in his prime do a debate, that would have been fun. Because now you're looking at two of the icons of both sides.
and then the winner, yeah, that's true.
But it would be different because the debating back on Reagan's time was way different than it is now. They didn't name call as much. They would do little jokes, but like I watched some of that stuff back in the day, and I'm like, they just they. I wish that
But
we
they
could
would
work
as soon
together
as like
that way.
somebody, but they would though as soon as somebody made it to be where it's okay.
Yeah.
Because everyone has that inside of them, which again, I also think but maybe we shouldn't. I mean, like, do we really want a name call? Do we? I don't want to teach my kid how to name call.
No.
So like, why do I want the leader of the free world to name call? And that's my biggest thing I have against
Hmm.
Trump. It's like, man, I don't want my kids to grow up like him. But like, if I have a binary choice, a choice of A and B, yeah, I'm gonna just teach them how not to be like him and be like, hey, that's the teacher. This is how you don't want to act.
Hmm.
But maybe these are some good values and some principles to live by. I don't know. But listen, it's been great being on your show. Is there anything else I can do for you before we wrap it up?
Yeah. Let people know where they can find you because I know that there's a lot of people out there that want to know where they can find the big
Oh
fish,
yeah.
Benny Fisher.
BennyFisher.com. It's pretty simple. BennyFisher.com. And then you can connect with me on social media, shoot me a direct message. I'd love to chat with you. If there's anything I can do to ever help you out, let me know. if you ever want me to speak at a conference or an event, definitely look. I got some openings in 2025 towards the middle of the end of the year. Um, but yeah, Joe, it's been a pleasure being on the show today.
Yeah, appreciate you being on. And like we've been talking about, go find a life that fulfills you. There's no rules with it. Just be who you are.